Today hold on. Today we're just gonna do YouTube and whatever I'm streaming on right now. It's my first time. When I first started the show, I did know how to use all the equipment. But a funny thing happens when you start hiring people. There's just less of an incentive to learn. And I've been wanting to stream on the weekends when my producer's gone. And it results in a little bit of struggle streaming. Thank you guys so much for understanding. Give me 1 second here. Okay. Okay, here. Um, okay, usually I have the website chat up, but I guess not today. 1 second. Okay. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of Pearl Daily. My name is Pearl, and I am your host. Um, I wanted to start with telling you guys a little bit more about me. Recently, I know you guys are thinking, Pearl, you self-centered influencer. Nobody wants to talk about you. It's an influencer thing. What can I say? I do apologize for this, but I think sometimes I've realized I have more new people watching me and they don't really know where I came from, how I know the things I know. And I just get asked this question a lot. So I thought I'd tackle it. So a couple years ago, I stumbled into RP content. I was a normal woman. I was playing volleyball. I sold copiers. And I randomly found PUA content. Now, PUA is essentially seduction. It's men learning strategies in order to get laid. It's men solving their problem. The women reject them and they think, how do I fix this? Seduction. Now, I ended up going to a PUA boot camp. Now, a PUA boot camp is where you pay a couple grand to have men teach you how to get laid. So this boot camp was in Vegas. And I think I was 25 at the time. And I just thought it was really interesting. I had a boyfriend at the time and I told him, I was like, I'm going to this PUA boot camp. He was like, what? Okay. And anyways, long story short, when you're there, you kind of want to help the guys. Like there's 10 men. They're talking about they said no, don't forget when you reacted to Chief Keef. Yeah, that too. But at this point, I went to this boot camp. And you really want to help the men get laid when you're there. You're kind of on their side, you're friendly. In hindsight 2020, I don't know why they let me come because it's kind of awkward for the men, I was thinking about this in hindsight, but at the time I was just so nosy, I wanted to see. And they basically go and approach women at these bars. And it's Vegas, so there's like pool parties, all this stuff. And to be honest, guys, before I went into the red pill, I was very sheltered. Like I just lived a very sheltered life. I went to a small college by Chicago. And I went to a private school growing up. I was in club volleyball. So everyone I was around, I think I was a bit sheltered from the realities of the world when I started. Now, at this PUA boot camp, I witnessed overweight women reject average men. And this was the first time that I ever saw things from the male point of view because these men were pretty normal guys for the most part. I mean, there's like one or two kind of weird ones, but overall normal, nice guys. And I saw how difficult it was for them to just talk a woman into bed. But I also saw the opposite side. I saw the instructors. And one of the instructors took a different girl home every single day. And it was actually really interesting because they would tell me how they hid girls from each other. So, one guy would get his apartment cleaned in between girls. Another guy didn't have any social media, so the women couldn't find each other, which is a pretty good strategy. We can, guys, we look through the likes and stuff. Now, I go to this boot camp, and at this period, I'm supposed to go to England in about a month. I'd quit my job in sales, and my plan was to go play volleyball overseas. Now, when COVID happened and everything got canceled, so I essentially quit my job for no reason, because I still had a year that I needed to work and I needed to get paid. So my dad encouraged me. He said, "Look, if you like this media stuff, go for it." And I started reacting to a lot of different types of content, and Red Pill was one of them. And I remember when I first heard Kevin Samuel, some of the stuff it really did trigger me. Like, I'll give you an example. High value men cheat. That was something when I first heard really, really triggered me. My dad, I would have considered him, according to the things that Kevin Samuels listed, he would have been high value, and my dad didn't cheat. And so it kind of triggered me. I thought, no, that's not true. Anyways, fast forward, I go to England and I end up interviewing 1,000 women. And the way I did this was I would recruit women to come on my show. It'd be through Instagram, the gym. And I wanted to test out some of these ideas in real life. So some of the stuff, again, I was kind of sheltered. I would say high value men cheat. And then I would ask the women what they thought. Do you like toxic men or do you like nice guys? And at first, I thought some of the red pill stuff was wrong. I really did. Because women would tell me that parts of it were wrong. And this was the confusing part. And men would too, you know. But there was a couple moments that red pilled me a little bit. One of them was there was a guy who had a very big Christian brand on my show. And I found out he would come on the show and debate me about men cheating and say high value men don't cheat. And turned out he was sleeping with 3 women on the show. Now, to be fair, I doubt he told the women that it was exclusive, right? But I realized that these guys just find their way around it out of technicality, but they're doing the same thing. I'm not judging them for it. You know, women do the same thing too. But what I realized is there was a lot of capping going on. You know, women would say they don't like cheaters. And then whenever you ask them if they broke up with their boyfriend after he cheated, the answer was always no. But oftentimes when he stopped cheating, they would stay. And there was just little moments like this that really red pilled me over time, where I realized that, holy crap, this stuff was true. And I just started to be able to see it in real life and even my life, that these guys know what the hell they're talking about, and you just couldn't escape it. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about community. And I want to give a little bit about my background and the community that I grew up with. Now, when I was growing up, I found community in 3 different places. I went to private school, I played volleyball, I played basketball, and we went to church. Now, when I think back to my school, that was probably the biggest community that I had up to the time I was 12. I pretty much went to the same school with 30 kids until 8th grade. And everyone knew each other. Everyone kind of knew each other's families. And that was probably the last time I had a close community that lived nearby. When we went to high school, most people lost touch, although there's a few that I still to this day know. Like my guitar teacher came on the show the other day. His whole family I grew up with. Like they all were like the musical geniuses of our town. So even though he was a little older than me, there's still a sense of when you go to see someone, familiarity because you know their family. And I don't think I noticed it in real time, but the older I got, the more community sort of died. Sure, my high school was smaller, right? It was 150, 200 kids, but still, it didn't have that community that I grew up with. But the community that I found later was volleyball. And this was something that was really important to me growing up. So all I wanted was to win a national championship. It was just something that was in my head from a young age. And I had Division 1 offers to go play at decently big D1 schools and I turned them down to go D3. I know everyone says that, but it's actually true. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to win a national championship. And recently, I'm back in the area and I just played in a tournament last night. I'm not on a team anymore, but sometimes I play in tournaments for fun. And I realized I knew like maybe 5, 10 people there just from when I played around here a decade ago. And I realized that is the transition. People used to get community 20 years ago from the people they lived around, their church, and their school. But we do not have that anymore. Um, Now, your community used to be where you lived and your families. Neighbors used to know each other. When I was growing up, this wasn't normal. Maybe it's because I went to private school, but I did not know many of my neighbors growing up. I don't think I was traumatized by this. A lot of people see this as the worst thing in the world. It was just kind of how I lived. If I wanted to see someone, they were 20 minutes away. Um, Apparently, back in the day, or maybe in different communities that I don't know of, it wasn't uncommon to see block parties, neighborhood cookouts, annual celebrations. But, the last several decades, the sense of community really has been lost. People live with each other for years, never having introduced themselves. Now, the neighborhood that I live close to, we know maybe 2 houses. There's not really trick or treaters anymore like there used to be, and people are really socially isolated. And I felt this a lot when I lived in London. Um, I found that most people I met when I lived in London were through my show or through my volleyball. That was where I met people. Traditional ways of forming communities like churches have not done enough to facilitate people coming together like they used to. Social media has created a false sense of community where people think that their community is online instead of in person. Today, we're going to talk about some of the ways that we got to this and then talk about if or what can be done. Um, so, the first thing that's happened in my lifetime is I've seen a really steep decline in religion. So, my grandma, she was a churchgoer every single week. So, every single week, she would go to church. It was a complete family event. But growing up, I mean, we went to church more than we didn't, I would say, but it was, we'd kind of go in waves. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. And most of my siblings, we don't really go to church at all. And that's the general trend. Now, I found an article that talked about the 6 reasons people are leaving church and how to keep them. The reasons listed are I can't deal with the politics. There are no opportunities to get involved. My church is too judgmental. I can't identify with these people. The focus doesn't resonate with me. Money is not being spent wisely. And when I think into what I've seen in the last decade, that matches up. You hear the women talking about church is too judgmental, so they leave. I can't identify this people. I think the number of people that come out to be frauds is something that turns people away. Money not being spent wisely. I think we've all seen those pastors going viral that, they're like in the expensive cars, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. I was curious to see how long people really stay with their churches because I kept hearing that if you want community to go to church. But when I see the women that I know in my life that are on the more religious side, none of them have been with their churches that long. The only women that I see that have consistently gone to a church for over a decade are over the age of 45, generally speaking. And when I looked it up, that seemed about right. The average length of time someone spends at a church is around 6.6 years, with the median being the most accurate representation, meaning half of churchgoers stay for less than this time and half stay longer. However, this can vary depending on the sources and demographics being studied. While the average church member may stay for several years, pastors typically have a shorter tenure, with some studies indicating an average of 3 to 4 years. So we're finding that the average churchgoer stays for about 6 years and the average pastor stays for 3 to 4. Again, maybe not when I was really little, but the past decade, I would say that is pretty consistent with what I've seen. We had a new priest every 3 to 4 years in our church. I would say on average, people stayed going to Catholic church until the kids were like 8 to 10. And I just don't really hear a lot of people talking about this. Now, attachment to traditional communities has gone down. Catholicism, Christian, Islam. Human need to believe in something. So where have I seen people go the last decade? And I really want to try to take morality out of this because many times what we have a tendency to do is say this is terrible or this is good. This is neither good nor bad, just a different way of doing things. People have gone to CrossFit, veganism, becoming a witch, horoscopes, wokeism, LGBTQ. I was curious the gender composition of religions on top of that. And I wanted to see which religions were dominated by men and dominated by women. What I see for the next decade is we are going to see more people. What I predict for the next decade is we are going to see men and women go further and further apart. I predict this. I predict that we will see this in religion and hobbies. You are going to see the division of hobbies for men and hobbies for women. You are also going to see the division of religion for men and for religion for women. Gender composition by religious group. So Buddhism is 51% men. Catholic is 46% men, meaning I think that Catholic is the next religion to go completely off the rails. I believe that when you see women completely take over, that is when you will see the LGBT woke things go into the church, when it becomes majority female. Hindu is 62% male, so that is the most male-dominated religion, except for Muslim, which is 65%. Orthodox Christian is slightly more male than female at 56%. Mormon is 54% female, mostly women. Jewish, 52% male. Evangelical Protestant is 55% female. And if I had to guess, I think that young women, if you look at the church attendance by women under 40, it's going to be mostly women. Men are leaving the church because of the feminism influence. Pastors preach a word that is against traditional values and masculinity. There was a pastor that had to say to his congregation that you should not use the words against your husband. Meaning that women were weaponizing scripture to criticize their husband's behavior. The average American lives in their house for 8 years, meaning that, Let me backtrack a second. So, what I've also noticed is that people move around a lot more than when I was a kid. I'm 28 years old. And when I think back to when I was 8 to maybe like 12 and under, most of my grades stayed the same. So between like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Between, and that's about 8 years, which matches up with the average length of marriage. The average person lives in their house for 8 years, and the average person lives in an apartment for 2.5 years. The average relationship length is 2 years and 9 months. Now, I need to go switch the screen because I don't have a producer today and I can't. But I want to show you guys a video I saw that I thought depicted very well the problems that we see in church. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, I'm going to see if this works. Can you guys see the screen now? Yeah, you can? Okay. Cool. So this guy is talking about why I left my Colombian wife after 1 year of marriage.
On her side. And it wasn't until after the proposal where things started going downhill. So I remember 2 months before the wedding, we were fighting quite a bit. I felt that I was dating the
Can you
church
hear
more
this
than I
okay?
was dating her. She would always prioritize the opinions of the people of the church and what the church thought over my needs and wants as the boyfriend and the husband in my marriage. For example, I could not go out to any bars or clubs because if I were seen there, it would reflect poorly.
Okay. So what I see happen is the women submit to the church and they pick the community of the church over the community of their family. So where church used to be a moral code and something you did with your family, now it is used as a tool by women to control the men that they're with.
On her, and the people at church would say something. I could not go attend other church services because she was a leader at her church, and if somebody caught me at another church, it would make her look bad. And it got to the point where when I was by myself going to the gym, I was fearful of interacting with any woman whatsoever for fear of if somebody saw me, what would they tell my wife, or how would this come back to me? I just wanted to avoid as many problems as possible. We decided to sit down with the pastor for marriage counseling right before we got married. We actually did that several times before we got married. I think we did it starting from 6 months before the wedding. Every single month, we would meet with the pastor, and I would have meetings with the pastor by myself as well. After we told him the situation, he told us that it's apparent that love is here and we care about each other, but if we continue down this path, the marriage is not going to work. Me, Wes, I have to fully agree and be on board with everything that they teach at the church. If not, that's okay. I should walk away. But by marrying my wife, I am accepting that this is the path that I want to take. And I guess looking back, this is probably the point where I should have walked away. I can admit that this was maybe cowardly behavior on my part, but it was very difficult because I had so many things on my mind. Being in a foreign country with no family, not knowing the language, not having any stability, I had the potential of losing all the stability and community that I built in Manizales. I would have everybody on the church turn on me, which going through the divorce now has clearly shown me. If you ever gone to a new place and set up roots, you understand how daunting and exhausting it is. Finally, when I found like a good area of stability and people who I felt loved me, it was really hard to give that up. Plus, the pressure of what everybody in the church was going to think, and the fact that my family, all of them bought tickets already to come to the wedding. There was just a lot of things going through my head. So my wife and I, we talked about it, and we came to the conclusion that because of love, we're going to fight through it, and we're going to try to negotiate everything as the marriage progressed, right? Because we love each other. I've never said this openly on my channel, but when I was courting my wife, there was another man who I guess is like another one of her father figures. This guy, he went to jail in the US for narco trafficking. Now he's a reformed Christian and everything. He came up to me one day and just took me aside and is like, hey, look, like if anything bad were to happen to Anna, he gave me like the gun fingers and he put it on my chest. He's like, I'm gonna kill you. He may have said it as a joke, he may have not, but well, this guy went to jail for it, right? He could very easily do something like that again. Ultimately, I decided that I think I should go through with the marriage. I just had too much to lose. It does look like a bad decision, but I did what I believed was the best thing to do at the time.
People get unhappy in marriages the way that people go bankrupt, which is very slowly and then all at once.
So the first 6 months of our marriage were very interesting. It was the first time that either of us have ever lived with a partner before. So our co-living situation actually was pretty good. We didn't have a ton of issues. I'm firmly against yelling at my partner. I know what it's like being on the other side of that and how crappy it feels coming from somebody you love. She never raised her voice at me either. You know, it was all very cordial. But the same topic kept coming up again. Am I dating her or am I dating the church? It just always seemed that she put the needs of the church and the opinions of the people of the church over my needs as a husband and what I wanted out of the marriage. She expected me to fit neatly into her life and she wasn't willing to compromise any of the time that she spent at the church. So the first 8 months of the relationship, she was working a full-time job. She was an accountant at the local hospital. So from Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturdays, she would leave at 7 in the morning and come back at generally around 6 p.m., but a lot of times at 8 p.m., sometimes at midnight, at 1, 2 in the morning because she had to work. For me, it just didn't make a lot of sense because I'm like, why are you working so hard when I'm paying most of the bills? I'm paying for like 80% of everything and I don't get to see my wife. It didn't really make sense. And then Saturdays, she would volunteer at the church because that was important to her. And then Sundays were mandatory church going days. And then afterwards we would eat with her family or with her mom or something like that. So we didn't really have any time dedicated to us or developing a relationship as a couple. And I also had a problem with the fact that every time that we would go on a date or go on a trip, I was planning all the events. If I didn't plan anything, we would not have any time together because she would always prioritize like volunteering from the church, being at those services, but she never really put our relationship as a priority. Even the honeymoon, right? We were gone for a month and I paid and planned for every single detail on that honeymoon, where we would go, her visa situation, all of the plane tickets, all of the Airbnbs, the tours, everything. I did everything. When I would be waiting at home for her to come back, I'm like, what do I do? Do I go out and try to meet people? But if I'm not hanging out with people from the church, I'm gonna get shit from my wife and she's gonna have a problem with that. You know, I want to go out and go dancing, but then I know she'll have a problem with that as well. Just to avoid having more issues with my wife, I just decided to stay home. And this is why I started smoking weed again, because I was at home and I'm like, well, I don't know what time my wife's gonna come home. I can't really go out. So what am I gonna do? I'm just gonna smoke weed and play video games because I have no other way to de-stress. So if she had to work in order for us to pay the bills, I think it would have been a different story. So this is why I eventually asked her to quit her job, because I was like, if the church is something that you're not going to negotiate, then I would rather you get a part-time job so I can actually see my wife and spend more time with her. Because a lot of times it doesn't even really feel like I have a wife. And I started noticing that when we would have disagreements, we would talk about the things that we would need and want in a relationship. So she'll tell me that as a Christian woman, these are the things that I need in my relationship. You know, I need you to spend time with my family, go to the church once, twice a week because that's important to me. I need you to show me love this way. I want you to be the provider of the household. I'm shy. I'm a very timid person, so you need to respect my boundaries. And I'm like, okay, that's totally cool. But then every time I would try to ask something from my point of view, things that I would like as a man or things I would like for my culture, right? As soon as she disagreed with it, she would use religion as her argument for her not wanting to do it. So, for example, when I told her that some Sundays I don't want to go to church because we work all week and I never get to see my wife, I would like to some Sundays for us to be able to spend some time, just her and me. And then she'd be like, okay, well, it's important that we go to church at least once a week. So if we don't go on Sunday, can we go Wednesday nights or Thursday nights? And she was just so concerned about what people at the church would say.
Yeah. So again, the church becomes a hobby to women and a community to women. And I was in a non-denominational Protestant church for a couple of years. And the thing that made me leave was I went on this church retreat. I mean, I was there like, I don't know, 2 years. I went on this church retreat and it was all 27, 28 plus single women. And I just thought, this is what the rest of their lives are going to be, wasting time in this church.
Say if she didn't go, rather than what I was truly asking her, which was just I wanted to spend more time with my wife. I also found that there was an unequal effort being made to understand the other person's culture. This whole entire time I was in Colombia, I had to learn a new language, adapt to a new culture, adopt a whole entire new religion, and accept all of her family as they were. And it makes me sad that in our 2.5 years together, she has still not had one conversation with my dad or my sister because she always says that her English isn't good enough. And she never learned how to make a Chinese dish. And I'm not saying that she has to be the best at cooks or that she has to be fluent, but after 2.5 years, I'm just like, if you were truly making an effort, you would have something to show for it. I remember one week before I went to Medellin for a business trip, my wife and I were fighting a lot. One evening, I received a text from a man from the church who was like a father figure to her and I. Wes, tonight I feel the need to write to you because you and I need to have a conversation. I need to remind you that she isn't alone and that I'm here to care for her and defend her against anyone who harms her, not only physically but mentally as well. When you decided to be with her, nobody forced you. Supposedly, as a mature person, you promised to be with her and not bring her to a life of sadness or contempt. You did it for love, and this love doesn't mean that she has to give up her values that she had since she's known you.
Okay, I need to turn this off 1 second. So again, does he get a wife? Is she submitting to him or is she submitting to the pastor? By the way, guys, you already know chalk. Oh my gosh. I have a cup up here. All right. This is the ad. I usually read it during the show, but my iPad died. I actually do like this stuff. It's pre-workout. I drank it before my marathon. See, it gets nice and blue. It raises your testosterone, which I think is good for men and for women because there's been research that's shown women's testosterone drops too. I know I always have to read the ad. It's like the sympatemic one, but I actually do like the stuff and it helps the show if you get it. So, the discount code is Pearl. You get like 15% off. And I like the taste. It's like a blueberry. So, and the owner's really nice too. Good guy. So, if you like pre-workout, it's lemon maple cherry. Oh, I thought it was blueberry. That's kind of what it tastes like, but get the adrenaline, etc. Take it or leave it, whatever, but helps the show. Feel free to get it. Okay. So again, when churches are like that, and what you have is pastors enforcing what the women want on husbands, and the husband having no authority over his own home, what do you get? You get men leaving the church. Now, the other trend that I've seen is an increase in online communities. And I have to say, I'm part of this. The last 4 years, I have made good friends that I met online. I met my boyfriend online. And that just seems to be the way that the world is going. So, 40 stats you should know about online communities in 2024. Online communities have stolen the spotlight. An online community can be anything from a sports group to a financial literacy course. Whatever the scenario, these communities help people feel supported and tied together to a greater cause, thus driving the user engagement and retention. 76% of internet users participate in some sort of online community. One study found that people in online communities that include blogs, forums, and or vlogs across all devices These communities can be seen in many platforms such as Reddit, which is home to more than 130,000 active communities. Facebook is another popular platform. Um, 60% of businesses own a branded online community. Participants in a recent study indicate that over 30% of their revenue is influenced by branded online communities. On average, larger companies are more likely to have online communities than smaller. Only 40% of small companies have an online community. Finally, making connections with people who have similar interests, 66%. This is the way the world's going, guys. There's an increase in people moving around. And, parents that made bad choices left kids with no other options. What do you do when you're raised by a single mother with no community around you and no siblings? They're forced to go online or join hobbies. What other choice do you have? Um, the average American has 3 to 5 close friends, and some studies suggest that it takes 40 to 60 hours to form a casual friendship, 80 to 100 hours to transition to being a good friend, and more than 200 hours to become good friends with somebody. So, making friends is a part-time job, and usually if you don't do it in your 20s, it's most likely you're never going to have a lifelong friend. The 20s are generally considered the prime time for finding good lifelong friends due to formative experiences and more free time. People make close friends throughout their life, but the early adult years can make a significant period for establishing deep connections. Factors like school, work, and shared interests can play a big role where people meet their best friends. People lose touch with almost half of their friends in their lifetime, and according to recent trends, Gen Z tends to go out significantly less than previous generations, with many reports suggesting that they might only go out once or twice a week at most. So, what trends do we have? The increase in digital, the increase in hobby communities, the decline of religion, and the sex is going further and further apart and more online. Now, okay, look at this. Let me switch the screen really quick. I think I found a way to do it on my laptop, but I'm not sure. Let me see if I can do this. Let's see if this works. Okay. Oh, yay, this is working. Okay. Oh, hey. Look at that. I wanted to show you guys an Instagram reel. I wanted to make sure it worked. Okay, so how couples met in the last 100 years. I'm going to go here. Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Can you guys see that? Heck yeah. Look. So this is why we say conservatives are playing pretend when they talk about traditionalism. 40% of couples they met online. 60% in 2024. And even if we start this over, I'm going to wait till it starts. So 1930, 22% was family, 22% was school, 19% was friends. When did family become not the norm? Let's see. Family, 40s. Since the 80s, it's been fourth. Yeah. And this is why, it's easy to virtue signal and say, guys, don't go online. But the way I see it is I don't control the trends. Yesterday at this volleyball tournament I went to, 3 people told me they don't go out in Chicago anymore because there's so much crime and they know people personally that got robbed and they're just not going to do it. Yeah, that's why I say, women that want to meet men in real life, you're either approaching or it's not going to happen. You might get lucky, but on average, people don't really talk to each other anymore, not like they used to. Okay. The average relationship length is 2.5 years. So once you get into a relationship with someone, on average, it lasts 2.5 years. The average marriage is 7 to 8 years, which lines up with the average length people stay in an apartment and a house. And it also lines up with the theory that women move when they get their heart broken. And my conclusion really is to go with the times or be left behind. There's a lot of people that protested the smartphone. There's a lot of people that protested YouTube. And if you don't adapt, you get left behind. The trads that say, and this is why I say traditional dating advice is awful. They do not understand the real world because they have never dated in the online age. For the most part, unless you are a unicorn, if you want to be married or in a relationship, you will most likely meet them online or through a hobby community, or both. That is how people are meeting. That's how people are meeting. So you can either take this information and use it to get the best outcome, or say, no, I want to do it the old way. Well, I can't. So these are the conclusions that I've made by looking at the chessboard. I'm only dating OnlyFans girls in my church. Look, I mean, I see it as a chessboard, okay? If we know there's an increase in hobby communities, there's a decrease in religion, there's an increase in online dating. And what was second? The second way. Wait, hold on. Let's get back to the end of this one. I'm going to wait till it goes. What was second? I got to look. Oh, and second is friends. So mutual friends. Third is coworkers. Jazzy, it's the approach. Don't be creepy. You're an idiot. Sorry, Jazzy. I mean, you're a woman, so you have no idea. You know what the success rate is of approaching women? It's like 1%. You have no idea. Online. That's the way to go. Their lives are a quest for hobbies made of no accountability or responsibility till it's too late. That's true. You know, the problem with workout classes is female workout classes, if they're too hard, someone complains and then they stop signing up. Sorry, Jazzy. I know you subscribe, but it's just, I'm not saying it's not bad to get social skills, but ROI wise, are you likely going to meet your girlfriend or wife that way? Probably not. You could go to the bars and going out, but they're literally going out of business. So Women cannot and will not be finding long-lasting relationships with the men that they want. This perpetuates the 80-20 rule and all of the toxic aspects of online dating. Height, looks, and status will be the norm for modern women going forward. Expect to be a single parent. People don't like it when I say this. I say expect it. Ladies, I have seen women more moral than you get divorced. Yep. Have a plan, expect it. I don't think it's, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Or, you can, option A is go with the times, or option B is fight it. Put your wife in a flower dress and make bread. Join a church where the people leave every 3 years. Then expect your wife not to leave because she promised that she wouldn't. Go to bars that are becoming more and more empty. Expect things to change and try to form a community where you live with people you have nothing in common with because they have immigrated a million people that we have nothing in common with. Or go to the parks that are empty. Anyways, guys, that's all I got for you. Thank you for bearing with me through my technical difficulties. Said Pearl is just jealous of women like Nala. Oh, I'm so jealous of a woman that has a video of her getting tag teamed online for the rest of her life. Damn, I just wanted to be her. Okay, guys, I gotta go figure out how to turn this stuff off, so give me a second. Thanks for tuning in. Love you guys, and I'm gonna be live tomorrow because I didn't end up going to the inauguration, but Trump 2024, baby.